All right, let's go ahead and begin Chapter 2's first lesson. Remember, Chapter 2 is going to be all about transformations. All right, so changing the size or moving the shape. Sometimes size will stay the same, etc. So we're going to look at a couple different things we can do with transformations, but the first one we're going to focus on is what we call translations. All right, translations. So when we think of translations, we're going to think of a slide. All right, we're going to slide the figure. All right, we're going to move it. All right, so our goal is I can translate points in the coordinate plane and write their new location. So depending on what they give us in a vector, we can go ahead and move the figure and write its new coordinates on the coordinate plane. All right, let's go ahead and look. Now there are four basic ways that we can change the appearance of a shape. All right, so the four ways that we're going to look at. All right, we're going to look at translation today. All right, translation is a slide, and we're going to learn about each one of these over the next course of this chapter. Now, the second way that we can do is we can do a reflection of a figure. Now, you'll notice to the right of this, it says the size of the shape does not change. So what we're going to do is keep the same size shape, and we're going to move it. So translation will be a slide. Reflection is going to be a flip. Okay, and the last one, or the third one, is rotation. All right, so we can spin a figure. We can spin it and rotate it. All right, notice these three do not change the size of the shape. The shape will stay the same size. The only one that will change the size of the shape, and we'll learn about it last, is what we call a dilation. Okay, all right. Now, all four of these are called, what we're going to focus on in this whole chapter is a transformation. All right, we're transforming the figure. All right, so translation, we're going to slide the figure. We'll learn that first. Then we'll learn reflection. Reflection is where we're going to flip the figure, and we'll do that another day. Rotation is where we're going to spin it. All right, those three will keep the same size of the shape. Dilation is the one that's going to change the size of the shape, and we'll learn that one last. Today, our focus is right here on translation. All right, so here we go. Let's look at what a translation is. All right, a translation is when a shape moves. All right, it's going to move. We also think of the word slide. It's going to slide. All right, now, it is either going to move left or right first, depending on what our x is, and or up or down from where it started. So depending on our x and our y, we're going to move the figure either left or right first, and then up or down, and we're going to plot the new point. All right, now, what they're going to do is they're going to write something called a vector. And a vector is like an ordered pair, except we don't use parentheses, and it's still the same order, x comma y. So this vector is going to tell us where do we move. All right, so based on this vector, the x tells us whether we move left or right. If x is negative, we'll move left. If x is positive, we'll move right. All right, now the y will tell us whether we move up or down. All right, if y is positive, we'll move up. If y is negative, we'll move down. So they will either give us a graph or give us points, and then they'll give us a vector. And whatever this vector is right here, that is going to tell us where we have to move each point. All right, so let's go ahead and look, how do we actually move the point, and what are we going to be required to do? All right, so you'll notice in this picture it says translate, so the first thing I notice is the keyword translate. So right away, I'm going to think we are going to slide our figure, our picture. All right, now it says triangle ABC, so there's 3 points. So what we have to do is we have to come up with what is our new point, A prime, what is our new point, B prime, and what is our new point, C prime, because they gave us an original A, B, and C. Now, we're going to find out what our vector is from the question. So the question says our vector is 3, 1. Now remember, the 3 is the x and the y is the 1. All right, so we have our x and our y. What this means is because the 3 is positive, the vector of 3, 1 is going to move us right 3, because the positive 3 would move us on the x-axis, right 3, and the 1 is going to move us up 1 because it's a positive 1. So I'm going to take every point in this picture and I'm going to move it right 3, up 1, and graph a new point. So let's start with A. If I start at A and I count 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3 right, and up 1, I land right here for my A prime. Well, that coordinate is 0, 4, and that's an ordered pair because it's a coordinate in the coordinate plane. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing for the other 2 points, so I'm going to start with B. B, I'm going to start at, and I'm going to go 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3, and then up 1, and I'm going to graph a new point, and I'm going to call it B with the dash. And now I'm going to figure out where is that on the coordinate plane. Well, that is over 0 and down 1, so 0, -1 is our B prime. Our C, we're going to do the same thing, so start at C. Let's move right 3, 1, 2, 3, and up 1. And I'm going to call that C prime, so I know that that's my coordinate, and now I'm going to go back and list what that point is on the coordinate plane. Well, I would have to go right 2 and down 1 to get to that point. And you'll notice we have our triangle that slid over. Each point slid over right 3 and up 1. All right, that is our first example. Let's go to example 2. All right, we are going to translate ABC. So again, I notice the word translate and I automatically think it's going to slide. All right, my goal is to come up with the new coordinates. I need to figure out what the new coordinate of A is, so we call it A prime, B prime, and C prime. All right, so I'm going to list my coordinates first. Now I'm going to identify my vector in this question. It tells me the vector is -2, +2. Now let's think about this. If we have -2, 2 in our vector, the -2, remember, is our x. The first one's our x, the second one's our y. If it's a -2, we're going to move left 2 first. +2 for y is still going to move us up. All right, so each point I'm going to go left 2, up 2, and graph a new point. So let's start with A. If I start at the point A and I go left 2, 1, 2, and then I go up 1, 2, you'll notice I land right here on the very edge or corner of this graph. I'm going to call it A prime, so I know that that's my new point. Now we go back to our graph and we list what is this new point at on our coordinate plane. So if I go left 5, -5, and then I go up 5, I would land on A prime, my new green dot. All right, I'm going to do B prime in pink. I'm going to start at B and I'm going to go left 2. 1, 2 to the left, and then I'm going to go up 2. And I land right here, B prime. I'm going to go back to my coordinate plane and I'm going to list that ordered pair. So my new pink dot is at -5, 0. All right, I'm going to do C in blue. Yeah, let's not use blue because the graph is blue, so let's use orange for this one. C, I'm going to go left 2. Now this is going to land on it, so it's going to be a little goofy, but let's go left 2 from C. So 1, 2 to the left, and then up 2, and you'll notice my orange dot lands right here. All right, I'm going to put a little C prime next to it, so I know that that's my new point, and I'm going to list that coordinate. That coordinate is at -3, 0. All right, you'll notice my triangle shifted 2 to the left and 2 up to find its new position. After we graph it, we'll list the coordinates of our new points A prime, B prime, and C prime. All right, let's keep going. Now, how can they give us this question working backwards? Well, you'll notice they gave us triangle ABC, and this time they asked what vector was applied. So they want to know, what did we do to move triangle ABC, this first triangle? How did we move this to get it to land on the other triangle, A prime, B prime, C prime? So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a point and try to get to the same letter. So for example, A. If I start at A and I have to get to A prime, remember, we have to move left or right first and then up or down. So if I start at A, to get to the other A prime, I'd have to go over 1, 2, 3, 4. So I went 4 to the right. And then I went down 1, 2. Down 2 would be -2, and that landed me at A prime. Now I can check B and C, and that should be the same thing. So if I go to B, let's try to get to B prime. In order to get to B prime, I need to move right first. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I move down 2, and boom, I land on B prime. So that works. I'll check C just to be safe and see how I move to get to C prime and make sure it works. And if it does, I know I did it correct for all three. All three have to be the same movement. There can't be two different answers for this. There's one correct. So let's check C. If I start at C and I go 1, 2, 3, 4 over, then I go down 1, 2, I land on C prime. So our answer for our vector is we went right 4, down 2, so we write it as +4, -2 with our vector arrows on both ends. All right, let's go to question 4. Now, they can give us this in a word problem too. All right, so instead of giving us a graph, they're going to tell us the points of QRS. They're going to tell us the new points, and we got to try to figure out what we did based on one of the coordinates to the next. We're trying to come up with the vector, so I need to come up with the two numbers that made this slide onto the other figure. All right, so here's where you pick whether you want to look at the Q and Q prime, the R and the R prime, or the S and the S prime. So let's say we just pick these two, Q and Q prime. Again, as long as you pick the same two letters and look at them. My first one was 2, -3 for Q. We need to figure out how we moved, what vector did we move in to get to our other ordered pair, which was -3, 1. So what we have to ask ourselves is, how did I move from 2 to -3? Did I go positive or negative if I started at the 2 and I landed at the -3 over here? Well, if I start at 2, I would have to go down 5 to get to -3, or left 5. So down or left would be negative, so I'm -5 to get from 2 to -3. All right, if I look at the y's, the y, we started at -3. We moved and landed at 1. All right, so if we started at -3 and we went to 1, we're going positive. The gap of numbers from -3 to 1, there's a gap of 4 numbers, so we went up 4 here, so this is a +4. So our vector, we moved each x-coordinate -5, and we moved each y-coordinate +4, so our vector is -5, 4. Now I can go check this with my other coordinates. So if I look at r and r prime, -1 was the original r. If I add -5 to that, I land at -6. R started at +5. If I add 4 to that, I landed at 9. So I know my vector worked for r. I can check S also. S was 0, 9. Our new coordinate is -5, 13. If I start at S and I go down -5, or I go left -5, I land at -5, 0 minus 5. If I started at 9 and I add 4, I landed at 13, so I know my vector checked for both of them. All right, so you're trying to find the jump. You only need to technically check one of them as long as it's the same letter. So you could have done Q and Q prime, R and R prime, or S and S prime, and you'll notice it worked the same for each one. I check it on a test or a quiz just to be safe. All right, let's look at our last, oh, that was our last one. I thought I had one more, but I guess not. All right, rate yourself how good you are on translations and vectors. If you understand it all, give yourself a 3. If you understand part of it, give yourself a 2. If you understand just the graph or one thing, then give yourself a 1. All right, we will go through some examples and then we'll do some practice together. But that is the first section, translations, sliding the figure.